Now it's time for Picking Up Dudes.
That's right, waiver wire day. Our old friend Field Yates is here. Good to see you, Field.
Good to see you, Matthew.
Yeah, and to help us with the waiver wire segment, Field, we brought in Fred, our fancy high-tech computer. Fred, of course, stands for Fantasy Research Entertainment Device.
But of course it does.
Yeah, obviously. So, Fred, welcome to the show. Good to have you.
Yeah, great to have you, Fred.
Thanks, Matthew. Instead of helping with real-world issues or doing quantum mechanics or cryptanalysis, I've been tasked with using my supercomputer powers to help you f***ing idiots decide which second-string running backs to pick up from the waiver wire.
Sounds like a good use of your time.
That is pleasant.
Yeah, I have to be honest with you, Fred. I sort of thought you'd be programmed with a little bit more of a pleasant personality.
And I hoped I would at least get to work with a real TV host. Life is full of disappointments, Matthew. Anyway,
That's fair,
Field,
actually. That's fair.
Glad to see Field at least. Here are running backs available in 50% of leagues. That took me a quarter of a nanosecond, just saying. Okay, you two, rank them. Just warm your hands, please.
Consider it done.
Picking Up Dudes. Running backs.
All right, Field, let's get to it. Who we got?
Yeah, number 5, Matthew, Shane Vereen, for as long as Odell Beckham Jr. is out of this Giants lineup, which maybe he returns this Sunday,
right.
But they were stuck in the mud against the Dallas Cowboys in Week 1, except for Shane Vereen, who had 9 catches on 10 targets. I certainly like him in deeper PPR leagues. And number 4 is somewhat of a crowded backfield in Seattle, especially with Thomas Rawls returning in Week 2. But I like the talent here of Chris Carson. As you know, he's a favorite of Pete Carroll's. Eventually, he could be the starter in Seattle, one of those add and stash values on the waiver wire in Week 1.
He's my boy, right?
The best, perhaps, in-house candidate for the Arizona Cardinals right now with news of David Johnson headed to IR. Perhaps Chris Johnson also impacts that backfield. But for now, Kerwin Williams could see 15 or 20 carries in Week 2. Buck Allen.
And they play the Colts, by the way. Nice matchup there.
You like that matchup there. Buck Allen comes in at number 2. Danny Woodhead going to miss some time for the Ravens. He's now their best pass-catching running back. Between him and Terrence West, wouldn't surprise me if they combine for 30 or 35 touches per game. Buck Allen on the radar. And then number 1, let's go to the talent here in Tariq Cohen in Chicago. He was not a player that was playing in Week 1 because of injuries or because of overall depth concerns. He was playing because he's a really good player, Matthew. 12 targets, an exciting draft pick for Ryan Pace. Came out of North Carolina A&T. And bottom line is this. If you can do a backflip and catch a football at the same time, you're going to make the Week 2 waiver wire column.
No doubt about this. I think you've ranked them correctly, by the way, if you need people for this week.
Yes.
However, if you're sitting there, you know what, I like my team, and you're just trying to shoot for the moon, if you will, give me Chris Carson as my number 1 pick, because I think of all these guys, he's got the biggest upside because he could be the starter in Seattle. Kamara is interesting as well. Played the most snaps of the Saints last night. I mentioned him earlier in the show. So, Fred, let me ask you this, but let's assume Tariq Cohen is the number 1 guy. How would I go about picking up Tariq Cohen?
Hey, Tariq, do you own a chain of fast food roast beef restaurants? Because you look like an RB to me.
All right, I get it. All right, fair enough.
Fred, are you single, Fred? Because I can understand why, if so.
Picking Up Dudes. Wide receivers.
All right, Field. So Fred has fired up a list of the 10 wide receivers that are available in more than 50% of ESPN.com leagues. Who are we going with?
Kendall Wright is number 5 on this list. Matthew, somebody has to catch passes in that Bears wide receiver core. Kevin White is out for the year. Kendall Wright previously had a 94-catch season under current offensive coordinator Dow Loggins. Number 4, Allen Hurns, with no Allen Robinson the rest of the way for Jacksonville. Hurns, who has already been paid by this team very good money, they like him enough that he could see somewhere between 6 and 8 targets per game.
That's interesting because a lot of people, I think, would have thought Marquise Lee over Allen Hurns. So you like Hurns.
We'll talk about that in a second. Number 3 is your boy, Cooper Kupp. You love him, Matthew. An exciting debut for the LA Rams. 4 catches and a touchdown. He's polished. He's a player that's going to be a big part of this offense, which looked very good in Week 1. You can't face the Colts every week, but I do like him as an add-in stash.
Does seem like he has a connection with Jared Goff.
No doubt about that. Number 2 is Marquise Lee.
I see what you did there.
He had 11 games last year with at least 4 catches. He really quietly became a big part of that offense last season.
Yeah, I did.
He had 0 catches in Week 1. That's disconcerting. So is the offense he plays in to a degree, but I do believe that Marquise Lee could wind up as the number 1 pass catcher in Jacksonville this season. And then number 1, let's get right to it. He was on the show earlier, so again, you come on the show, you make fun of Matthew, it's always a good chance to land you on the waiver wire. Kenny Golladay, too much talent to not eventually become the number 2 wide receiver in Detroit.
Yeah, and by the way, it also helps when you score 2 touchdowns.
That works.
in your NFL debut there. So I would agree with this. I actually would probably move Cooper Kupp up to 2 in PPR leagues because, again, I think maybe he doesn't always score the touchdowns, but I do think Goff is going to dump it off to him quite a bit. And we talked about BF3 earlier in the show. But Fred, let's go with Kenny Golladay. If I'm trying to pick him up, how would I do it?
Are you an electronic device that takes radio waves and converts them to usable form? Because you look like a damn good receiver.
I've heard worse, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you have. I have to be honest with you, Fred. These are some pretty bad pickup lines.
I know, but since this is your show, I was programmed to be as smooth as you.
That's
now
also fair.
I like that a whole lot more.
That makes
Bravo,
a lot more sense because I'm not smooth, Field. You know this. All right, hey, so that's wide receivers and running backs.
Yes.
Why don't we check out the best of the rest if you need a position that isn't one of those two as well?
Yeah, these are my top 5 overall, Matthew. Tyrod Taylor, number 5. He was a top 10 quarterback over the past 2 years, still available in over 70% of leagues. We talked about Kerwin Williams. Probably might have more immediate value as some of the other running backs on this list. Kenny Golladay, love the talent. Same goes for Buck Allen. And, of course, Tariq Cohen. That guy, I think, has a chance to be a special player for the Chicago Bears.
Awesome. Thank you, Field. Thank you, Fred.
Mostly
Still to
thank you,
come.
Fred.